welcome back to Retrieving Sanity with your podcast host Keegan, and this is your podcast for all mental health, addiction, recovery issues, and topics. And today we have a very special guest and a very special episode, and our special guest is Elizabeth Kipp. Welcome back to the show.
Well, thanks so much, Keegan. It's great to be here. I thank you for inviting me back.
Of course. It was an absolute pleasure having you on the show last time, and I know that we talked about doing a special episode for this time of year, and some other things have kind of taken place in between our last episode and this upcoming holiday, so we might touch on that a little bit too, because it kind of goes in line with what we wanted to talk about, and that was how to stay sober through the holidays.
Yeah, well, at this point, it's how to stay sober.
Yeah.
Period.
Unfortunately.
You know?
Yeah.
Can I go to bed clean tonight? Right? Clean and sober tonight. And can I go to bed? How did I do? Was I in integrity with my values? Right, which I think is a huge part of staying sober.
Yeah. It's running that step 10 at the end of the day. Just, all right, where did I kind of not do too great, and how can I improve? But I also like to sit there and kind of go, like, maybe I did something better than I did in the past, and I should give myself a little pat on the back for hey, I actually did good.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. So we have a program in recovery. This isn't all about addiction recovery. A lot of it is, but this is also mental health. I feel like going into the holidays and definitely going into challenging times, we need a toolkit.
Yeah.
And one of the things about the holidays, and we generally have it in Western society, sugar's just everywhere. Alcohol is everywhere, and alcohol is a sugar, so it's they both feed into addictive cycles, which then feed our emotional instability. By the way, we think it helps me calm down. Well, it actually makes you more depressed. So it makes the emotions more unstable. So I always like to think about, begin with your intention. Right? What is your intention for your sobriety? And what is your commitment to your sobriety? And I like to start with one day at a time. That's served me well. This moment, this day, right? Sometimes all I've got is this moment. Sometimes I really have to chunk it down to this moment. Certainly in this last week, it's been this moment. This moment. Yeah. So really, it's kind of like, is the action I'm taking in this moment in line with my intention and my commitment?
That's a good way to look at it.
Right. So that then we're kind of checking our own alignment with ourselves as we move through the day.
Okay. I really like looking at that. I haven't heard that before. But that really does help set a lot of things into perspective. And I guess I've heard it, but maybe put a different way. It's to live intentionally. So, I like how you put your spin, or not spin, but your perspective on it. Because it does help elaborate and kind of draw out what the process is in living intentionally. What does it mean to live in a program of recovery? And it's not it's a program because it's something that we continuously go and do. We don't do one and done and wash our hands and say, that was fun, back to it.
Yeah, so we had an old habit. We came into recovery with a habit that we wanted to shift, a habit that we most likely developed because we were dealing with some kind of unresolved trauma, and we didn't know any other way. It was just the easiest way to deal with it.
Yeah.
And then it became very unhealthy. It may have served us originally, but it did, then it didn't, right? Until it didn't.
Yeah.
So now we're trying to change that habit. And so I asked myself, and I may have said this before, this thing I'm doing in this moment, is it adding to the, is this helping me create a new way to live, like a new habit? Or is this thing I'm doing putting the old program under reconstruction? So am I slipping into my old ways? Yeah. So we have power in this moment. Our power of choice is at the intersection of that.
Yeah.
So when I feel powerless, and I have been feeling powerless lately, I ask myself, where am I sourcing my power?
That's
right?
a good one.
Am I sourcing my power on external events? Which you better believe I was sourcing my power on external events the other day. I was like, like, so, and it wouldn't have mattered which side I was on, because the whole election thing is all about, sides and, extremes. And there was just a lot of separation, and separation anxiety in the field.
Yeah.
Which is dysregulating just that. So anyway, so I asked myself, where am I sourcing my power? And for me, it's I have to remember that the source is my higher power that lives within. Now, it gets tricky with me, because I remember we have to talk about safety a little bit in this format, because we really can't work an effective recovery program without our safety sorted out first. We have to have a sense of safety. The nervous system has to believe that it's safe. Then we can connect. We can't connect it where we can't connect to higher power. We can't connect to other people. We can't connect to ourselves unless the nervous system feels safe enough to do that. So you can't digest your food and run at the same time. The nervous system's not made for that.
Yeah.
Well, you can't protect and connect at the same time. The nervous system's not made for that. We're either in defensive mode or we're in connection mode.
Gotcha.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. So our sense of safety means, I don't have to protect myself in this space.
Okay.
Right? We were talking about the safety pin as a sign, just as a signal, I'm a safe person. Yeah. So we have to make sure that we're safe. Then we can connect.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Real quick, you just touched on it though, the safety pin. We weren't recording whenever we talked about that. So for those that are listening, if you see someone wearing a safety pin, that's probably a sign that they're a safe person to be around. So if you see me walking around, I will have a safety pin, probably numerous. So if you need one, just let me know. But it's a sign that someone is safe. So keep that in mind. But only use it for good.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. So one of the things that where I really learned about the power structure, and knowing where am I sourcing my power. That question came in really strongly for me when I experienced a time where I was not safe, and I was literally powerless, and I fortunately got out of that situation safely. But while I was in there, I was just like, I didn't know what was going to happen. So very scary. And then and here I'm in a recovery program. So I'm just saying, just so you understand, I'm a human just like everybody else. I went to a therapist. I did, yoga. I did ancestral clearing. I did my other part of my recovery program, step work, all around the resentment, all around that situation. And that kind of helped, and it didn't, because I would have these moments for about 2 years. Every once in a while, I would just light up inside with anger, just like a fire. And it's very unusual for me to do that. And it was because it's just kind of not where I live. but it was happening, and it's, you know, we're wired for this stuff. So, you know, here's the emotion. And so I would breathe, and I would text my sponsor and say, you know, I got a resentment, you know, and I'm working on it, and I'm calling to my higher power. And, you know, just like, anyway, I kept dealing with this, and it kept happening. Over every once in a while, it would happen over a 2-year period. And then one morning, it happened again, and I wasn't even hardly awake yet. And and I was just like, I'm so done with this. I'm so done with this. And I dropped to my knees, and I kind of pounded my wrists on the floor. And I was like, higher power, please guide me through this, because I have clearly, I don't know how to like move beyond this. I have no idea like what's happening here, because I can't see it.
Yeah.
And in 30 seconds, I got a download. And the download was, Elizabeth, look at you leveraging your biology to make yourself feel powerful when you felt powerless. Oh, no, that's what I said. I was like, wow, I didn't know I was doing that, you know, but that's what I was doing, you know, as anger is a very powerful emotion.
Yeah.
And we get, you know, it helps us access, you know, a lot of power in the nervous system when we feel threatened or as in my case, powerless. It was just that I hadn't resolved the situation, the trauma of that. And I kept getting stuck in this cycle, and I didn't know how to find out of it. None of the things I tried so far helped me move out of that. And so I was like, well, thank you for showing me that, because, you know, also, by the way, anger is addictive in the brain. That emotion is addictive in the brain. So, you know, I can be clean from my drug of choice or my behavior of choice, but I start getting in an anger cycle. Now I'm back at the frequency of addiction. Yeah. So just kind of understanding the brain and the force of addictive tendencies.
It's
anyway,
very strange.
So I was like, well, that's really interesting. So I got another download 30 seconds later. So within a minute, I got my answer, is what I'm saying. And 30 seconds later, at that 1 minute mark, I got another download, which was, Elizabeth, look where you're sourcing your power. And I was like, oh my God, I'm sourcing in my biology and my ability to, you know, my emotional stuff instead of higher power, the boss. Yeah. And that was very humbling to me I was like, oh,
that direct connection.
I had to redirect, right? So that was a very powerful lesson for me, and a big I had an awakening around that, right? We talk about it, a spiritual awakening. That was a spiritual awakening for me. And that was the last time I had one of those episodes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Fast forward to, you know, the last week or so, where we've had a big switch in the tide, and there are there's a lot of letdown and worry and confusion, and, you know, a lot of powerlessness and stuff. And it wasn't that I was angry. I was just super dysregulated, super dysregulated. And I knew that my nervous system at a very fundamental level was not feeling safe. Yeah. Even though I had a roof over my head, and the power was on, and the tech was working, and, you know, I had food in my belly, and it still didn't feel safe, right? Yeah. Well, that was interesting, because I kind of lived there for, I don't know, a few hours, and then I get up the next morning. That was at night. I get up the next morning, and I'm, you know, still dysregulated, and trying to collect my wits, gather my wits. And I got on my mat, and I started doing my breath practice, which part of the yoga practice that I do is so powerful for yoga, for recovery, just for anybody, but recovery is super helpful. Okay. And I could feel my nervous system calming down, and I got this awareness that I was like, Elizabeth, where are you sourcing your power? I was sourcing it in external events, not within the light within, not within the my higher power within. So I made that switch. But, you know, it's for me, I don't know about everybody else, but for me, my ego can get very tempted by what's happening in the external world and distracted, and I can get spun up in that. And fortunately, I'm around good teachers, and I've got a good sponsor, and I've had enough. My higher power gives me insights and stuff that I might hang out there for a little while, but I make that adjustment and come back.
Yeah.
To center.
Okay. Wow. Thank you for all that insight. That's really powerful stuff, and there's a lot to unpack there too. So one of the things that I really liked was how you're talking about you're safe in all rights and physical means at the moment. You know, you're in a house, everything's working, you don't have any actual threat in the house, but you're still unsafe. And that goes for so many people in so many different aspects and situations, and some of those situations are actually coming up with the holidays because so many people are actually going to be over at families or relatives' house, and they may not be able to leave because they're in a bad neighborhood. Maybe they don't have transportation, and they're kind of stuck in this external environment of sorts because it's immediate. So yeah, there's something else going on, and they could be unsafe, but it's what they're really feeling on the inside. Maybe they've had abusive relative, and no one believes them, and they're forced to do Thanksgiving or something like that. And I mean, I don't know about you, but if I were in that situation, I would probably drink over it. I know old me definitely would have. Now I have a program of recovery, and so we can actually sit there and look at what you were saying. Am I directing my energy outside, or am I directing it inside? What can I do to stay sober? And you kind of touched on it, or maybe a snippet in the very beginning, and that's kind of being in the moment. So
yes, and what's my intention? Am I in integrity with my intention? Because I'm trying to stay sober here. That's my focus.
Yeah.
My focus isn't on my argument with Uncle Joe or whoever. My focus is on my recovery, and that is that other thing, kind of thing. Now, if Uncle Joe's in my face, threatening me, that's a different story. But that's unlikely. In that case, I'm going to exit. And by the way, part of my recovery plan is take a friend, or if you can't take a friend, it's a family gathering. Within that family gathering groups, find a safe person and let them know, that you like if you need to leave, they can either help, make excuses for you, or they can help, but they can go with you. Right. But you need to cultivate safety within wherever you're going. This a way of having an exit plan. So here's the thing that I like to remember that Tommy Rosen, who's runs Recovery 2.0 and has been very instrumental for me. He says, there's no exit plan. We're always looking, as addicts, we're always looking for an exit plan. We're always looking for how can I, but there's no exit plan that actually works. Right. Yeah. There's always a cost. Right. Yeah. Well, in our sobriety, and when we're trying to maintain our sobriety in the holidays, we want to know what are my alternatives. What is my exit plan if I'm going to this event? Like, what's plan B? That actually makes sense, because an exit plan of using or drinking, that's not an exit plan.
No.
That's an illusion that's an exit plan.
Yeah. It's definitely an illusion of an exit plan, and I think it would definitely be an excuse, honestly. But what I'm really curious about is how else would you cultivate safety where you're going?
Yeah.
Because that seems like that's going to be paramount to help calm down your nervous system so that you can actually be present again.
That's right.
What are some of the things that help you or others that you know cultivate safety?
Yeah, so we want to do things that actually tell the nervous system that it's safe.
Okay.
Things like there's an intimate connection between a long exhale and the brain. And when we have a long exhale, it tells the nervous system to calm down. So you might have heard somebody say to you, breathe, but what they should tell you is
breathe out.
Long exhale. Take a nice deep breath and make sure that exhale is as long or longer than the inhale, and do it through the nose if you can.
Oh, breathe out through the nose.
Yeah, just exhale through the nose. You can do a sigh it out through the mouth, but it won't be as long as it will slow through the nose.
I see.
So you just want to amplify that signal as much as possible.
Okay.
So long deep breath, exhale as long or longer than the inhale. This is a predictable response in the nervous system. And isn't that sweet? Isn't that sweet? So that's a reliable tool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
You know?
It's one of those things that your body knows, but you don't know.
Well, the body is, the nervous system is wired in a certain way. And what's really cool about, I got by on my wits for most of my life. But when I learned the power of the breath to leverage the secrets of the breath, really, which is what, is within the yoga practice. It's not the only, yoga isn't the only place. There's lots of places you can learn how to breathe. Yoga is just the one I chose. When you leverage the breath like that, the power of the breath, all of a sudden, you're like, I have agency over my environment. I'm not subject to what so-and-so or whatever is doing out there. I'm attending to this. My focus is here, right? And, to get spiritual for just a moment, because I love the connection. Most people that are listening to this will have heard this phrase. I'm just taking it a step further.
Okay.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. And where does the Word live? It lives on the breath. So we're not only leveraging the nervous system's capability and that long, slow exhale to calm the nervous system, we're also doing an instant connection to God. Bam.
Yeah, I like that.
And my experience is that the breath is the bridge through. Whatever it is, the breath is the bridge through. And I'll give you an example of when I really learned that.
Okay.
So I was on benzodiazepines for 31 years and opiates because of a back issue and prescription medication until I finally found a doctor that knew how to get me off that stuff and how to live without it.
Yeah.
And benzodiazepines long term, which would be anything over 2 weeks, by the way, messes with your sleep cycle. And then when you get off them, your body is trying to readjust to their absence, and the nervous system goes through an adjustment. I'll just put it that way. And what happened to me was, oh man, I would go to sleep at night, and I would be all calm and everything, and I would wake up, and my nervous system was on red alert, and I was just like, fully wired out of a dead sleep, and all I had just enough space in my mind, in my kind of awareness, to breathe. That's all I had. And thank God I had it. I was grateful I had it. But that's all I had was breathe. And that took me through and I had those moments for off and on for about 5 years.
Oh boy.
So yeah, it takes a while to get off the nervous system to readjust and stuff. So it wasn't every night, but it was every night for a while. and then it started breaking up and stuff. But yeah, so when the nervous system really gets wired, that the way that the bridge through that is the breath. So that's like your number one tool, and you can take it anywhere with you. It's always there, and you don't have to. Nobody needs to know that you're using that tool.
Ooh, I like that. I like that a lot.
So it's this very, very, very useful. So I'm just saying, like, that's my number one tool. Second tool is, where's my focus? Right? Where's my commitment? Have I remembered for higher power, because I'm not doing this alone? Right? Because when we get this, anyway, for me, I'll say for me, when I start getting dysregulated, I'm like, now it's become unmanageable.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to become unmanageable because I think I'm doing it alone. Right? Yeah. So I need to remember, focus, right? Focus. Where's your connection?
Okay.
And the breath gets me there.
I like that. Those two do tie together really, really well. And I do like how you mentioned that no one has to know that you're actually using a little breathing technique to calm down. You're not sitting there with a paper bag.
That's right.
You're just sitting there, just actually breathing. And if anything, someone may be like, wow, you're breathing really slow. But if they're paying that much attention, that person might need to be like kept an eye on.
Well, actually, what's kind of interesting is that our bodies feel each other. We may not be able to like mentally get each other, but we, where we think we get each other, we really don't. Our bodies definitely get each other.
Oh yeah.
So it would be more likely that somebody, if you're doing that at a party, somebody would be attracted to the calm vibe. Oh, because this has happened to me in meetings before. I swear, it's happened to me in meetings before where the new meth addict that's got a day or two or a week clean, and their nervous system's completely, still just super dysregulated. Seriously, this has happened more than once to me. They will sit right down next to me and say, I'm sitting next to you because you're in the peace zone. Their body knows it's a safe, quiet space. Yeah.
It's really interesting. I think that I've read that they're called mirror neurons.
Yep, mirror neurons, absolutely.
And it's just really strange because we really do have that sixth sense that whenever people talk about being an empath and stuff, that stuff is real.
Well, we're all empaths. It's just a matter of some of us are more aware of it than others.
Yes. Yeah.
But we all have the ability to check, to feel that stuff. It's just a matter of whether we're attentive. Where's our focus? Where's our focus?
Yeah, where is our focus? And the focus can go all over the place, and that's super easy to do in almost any environment, really, because I can sit there and I can play I Spy with myself. I can play Patty Jack with the wall. I can just do a whole bunch of different things, and if it's not conducive to helping me calm down or something like that, then I'm just wasting energy, and then I'm going to get upset like, why am I not feeling good because I'm not doing something that actually would help.
That's where self-compassion comes in, by the way. That's another part of the toolkit.
Yep. But with that and the focus, I have to bring it back to self, towards something that is going to benefit myself. And you're going for breath work. I'm thinking some people might want to maybe take it a little bit of a step further and maybe do a body scan, but that would also require that they are in a space where they're able to do so.
That's right.
I feel like that would be a good way to help someone actually just get familiar with the space. Like if they had to leave a family's house or just a house and get somewhere new, do a body scan there, kind of tell your whole body, like, look, this is the environment we're in. We can kind of calm down.
Well, I'll tell you another thing that I learned from security guys work in events. I have some friends that were security guys work in events, and And I may have been doing it subconsciously, but they made it quite conscious.
Uh-huh.
So you walk into an event and you're the security guy, or you're just a normal person, which is, what are you going to do? The first thing, you're going to find out where all the exits are. Right?
Yeah.
So that's another way of creating safety. When you walk into a new venue or house or whatever it is over the holidays, where are the exits? Just knowing where they are is at least gets you moving in the direction of a plan should you need it, right? We talked about where's the exit. So that's just that's just something I learned from them, which as a woman, I may have been doing that subconsciously, but it was really sweet to hear that from people that were professionals. And I was like, oh, that's a thing. I need to remember that, consciously.
It's a real big thing because that can be spread anywhere you go. Kind of like you said, a new venue, like if you're going to a new concert or just maybe you want to go to the civic center at your town or something like that. Just having those simple exits and knowing a path to them is going to help out tremendously because you literally never know what's going to happen. We like to think we do, but
so you at least want to get to the point where you've got tools in your toolbox that can create as much safety as you can, because yes, we live in an unpredictable world. Right. And it's somewhere we have to be able to trust that our higher power has our best interest, and our connection to that will be connected into the flow if we kind of remember our connection.
And I think this one might be over some people, but working a program of recovery, it has taught me to listen to my higher power. So if I'm seeking safety, why not ask my higher power, how can I get more safety?
That's right.
And just kind of listen and breathe through it and then focus my attention on the answer.
That's right. That silence that you're asking for the breath is where the answer is going to come in. I have to at least I have to at least get enough grounding in my nervous system to be able to hear the message.
And I think it's important to actually listen to that message, because if you hear it and you decide to go, I'm not going to do it, you're probably not going to find the answer. You're probably...
the answer you're going to find is going to be something else. That's for sure.
It's probably just going to be a little bit worse of what you're trying to avoid.
Another thing that's kind of fun around getting safety, creating safety, because we do this. I teach trauma-informed yoga, and these are just kind of basic tools that we teach in that space. Is you find 5 things you can see. So we're trying to get present instead of worrying about what just happened or what happened in the past and is it going to happen again or what's going to happen in the future. You want to get present, right? 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. So you're hitting all.
It's just 1 thing.
Yeah, right. It's all you're hitting all 5 senses, and just doing that exercise will help you get present, and that's grounding, right? That's it's as helpful as the breath, and the body scan that you brought in. The body scan's another way to get present. Can't do a body scan if you're not in the present.
I've had multiple anxiety and panic attacks, and I'd say probably the 2 before the last one happened while I was still in rehab, and my counselor, she walked me through a body scan, and that actually calmed me down, and I was like, well, this is weird. And I was like, it actually worked. It took a little bit, but the thing is that once it worked wonders.
That's right.
And so
that's right.
That's why I say that some people may not have the luxury of doing something, of being able to actually sit and relax. So what can someone else do along with breathing and really being intentional on their focus? What's something else that you think is something that they can just go, maybe they can, I know, actually, no, that's just a distraction. That wouldn't necessarily help. I was going to say, do some something to take your mind off of it would help a little bit, though,
Well, it depends on what's happening with the mind, because that's something you brought in that's kind of interesting. the things that you and I are talking about help focus the mind on the moment, rather than, oh my God, this thing's going to happen, or what if, right? Yeah. We're right here, and that's a very powerful space to be and to act from here, right? So anything that brings you into this moment is going to be calming, and you're also going to remember your connection to higher power. Now, as far as anxiety goes and cravings, the yogis sorted this out thousands of years ago, and it's just not common knowledge enough, right? So body scans are amazing, but just breathe through the left nostril, cover the right nostril, and just breathe in the left nostril long and deep, keeping that exhale as long or longer than the inhale, just through the left, stimulates the calming center in the brain. 3 minutes of that, anxiety's gone, craving's gone.
Really? Huh.
It's really good for cravings. So 3 minutes, left nostril breathing.
Okay.
Yeah. And that helped me with sugar cravings when I was dealing with that, and I had a rip-roaring sugar addiction when I got off the opiates, because sugar and opiates hit the same part of the brain, and I was just like, I didn't really understand. But anyway, I do EFT tapping, a certain kind of EFT tapping it's a little bit different than regular EFT. It's called bilateral EFT tapping, which is somebody, if anybody's interested, just find me, just connect with me, and I'll teach you how to do it. That was very helpful in clearing the whole thing about sugar in my system. But in the moment where I would have a craving, the left nostril breathing just made it go away for the moment. Yeah. So it'll head off a panic attack. As soon as you start to feel your nervous system start to light up, left nostril breathing, run the experiment, see how it works. I mean, it's great to have a tool like that, you know?
Yeah, that is a really powerful tool, because an anxiety or panic attack can last forever. And even though
my God, I used to have them.
Yeah, and not only can they literally be hours, but it feels like an eternity in the middle of it. And so I think being able to find your center and ground and catch your breath are super duper important to help end it. But you just gave a tool to help curb it before it even starts.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't think your way through an anxiety attack. You have to hit the nervous system at its level.
Yeah.
And nobody taught me that until I got into pain management through treatment, and we started working with the breath, and then I got into Kundalini yoga and learned about left nostril breathing. And oh my God, I've been having panic attacks for like freaking years, and this is here. Right. Hasn't this been here all along? That's okay. I learned all kinds of lessons, as a result of all those things I went through. But yeah, we have a tool.
But don't you know, you can't just sell some instructions to tell people to just breathe through their left nostril.
They have to have the experience so that they know how powerful it is. Yeah. Yeah, so, for sure.
And it's just one of those things too, though, that it's focusing more on a preventative happenstance. You're not sitting there necessarily going reaction. You're saying it's better to take action before it needs to be taken.
Yeah, we have to at least be embodied enough to notice that our nervous system just lit up. Right? Yeah. And my old habit of denial would have missed all of that. And I would have been full into panic before because I had that old habit of denying my experience. But I don't have that anymore.
And I think that's a really good one too, is to not deny your experience, because that will cause a lot of inner trauma to yourself.
That's right.
And you said self-compassion, right?
Yeah.
So did you want to speak on self-compassion as a tool for a little bit?
Yeah. So I have a recovery program, and and it works for me when I work it. And sometimes I get I allow myself, because I'm going to take ownership. I allow myself to get distracted by and affected by external events. Still threading that needle, by the way, still trying to figure out, like, how can I be in the world and not of it? And how do I know what's going on and not have an attitude about it? I just don't, I don't know how to quite do that gracefully, really. I still get, my ego will still go, rawr, like, and I have a teacher that says from a yogic perspective, when I get, my righteous injustice and indignation gets fired up, that would be my number one thing in step 4, is like my resentment is my righteous indignation. That's my thing. Like that's my assignment really for this lifetime. So one of my teachers says, well, Elizabeth, and I could hear him in my head when I get, fired up like that. Elizabeth, release your position. Because the idea is like, is there another perspective? And I'm going to tell you, when I'm in that space where I'm rare and I hear that release your position, you know what happens? I'm like, there is no position. There's only this position. Like, there's only this position, so that's me, asserting my will, that's my will. And I have to, so this is where the self-compassion comes in. And I'll watch myself doing that. Like, oh, see what you're doing, and like, this is not recovery. You've gone right back into addictive, I want what I want when I want it. That's addictive thinking, right? Oh, there's only one position and, you're not doing it. And that's the addict. I want what I want when I want it.
Yep.
And so now I'm like, okay. So the self-compassion there is not to beat myself up, because I used to have an inner critic that wouldn't quit. But that's not what this is about. This is about retraining the brain, retraining our patterns to move out of the old stuff and into something new that's productive, like working the solution instead of the problem. He did that, or she did that, or whatever the thing is, instead of, oh, I see that this thing is happening. Is there something I can do to affect a positive change? Now, where do I have power here? Yes, I have power to act. Do I have power here? No, I don't have power here. So I exit. Yeah. So this is where we kind of have to understand the power structure because if I don't have power here to act, and there are many places where I don't have power to act, then it's higher powers department. It's not mine.
Yeah.
You see how that works? Yeah. So self-compassion in there is like, clearly I'm having difficulty navigating this path right now. And I'm going to breathe, and I'm going to allow myself to process this, and I'm going to love myself through it. Because I used to, beat myself up, and I don't do that anymore.
Yeah. And I used to do the same thing. I'm still kind of guilty of it, but
it's hard to break.
It is hard. Yeah. After years of doing it to yourself, or to myself, I should say, those neural pathways are so strong that it's not just part of me, it is who I am. But that's the thing, is that in recovery, I'm changing who I am.
That's right.
It takes a little bit and it takes a lot of work, but it's totally doable. And self-compassion is one of those things that I wish I learned a long time ago.
But we got it now.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to tell people that may have never tried self-compassion and want to try it, it feels really, really weird at first.
That's true. It's like, what is this? Like, contrary to my programming, and this is not normal. You're right. I'm so glad you brought that in, because the nervous system is going to go, but we have this old pattern, and it doesn't like the new one, and that's what you're referring to.
Yeah. I remember the first time I started to feel happy again, whenever I was in rehab, like the first time I started actually feeling decent, I started feeling butterflies, and I was like, what is going on? I was like, this is weird. And I found myself, I was kind of laughing and smiling, and I was like, I don't like this. And I talked to my counselor about it, and she was like, because you're starting to feel happy again, and you haven't felt it like that for so long that it feels bad now. And I was like, yeah, I want it to go away, but I had to learn how to embrace it before it actually did anything for me.
Yeah, so. Well, there's a lot. We could do a whole podcast on what you just said, because there's a lot to unpack with that. As a chronic pain specialist, our big challenge in the chronic pain experience, and addiction is a chronic pain experience, is that we get used to feeling bad or feeling like not feeling joy. We get used to that. That's our habit, is not feeling it. So when there's an opening and we begin to feel, joy, it's my nervous system saw it as a threat. This is not normal. This is not normal. And so I had to, I had to do a lot of breath work, and I had to, So, and I had to get around safe people, and I just, So right, here's another thing about safety, because we're really underlining it. We get traumatized in an unsafe relationship. So we heal in safe relationship. And this is why it's important that we're working in safe spaces as we recover.
Yeah.
And so if we're going to a family gathering or some holiday party, and wherever, take a safe person with you.
Yeah.
Make sure you've got safety within that, so that you're co-regulating with one another, and that you've got help. And you're helping each other. It's not like codependent. It's just you're helping each other. You're of service to one another. And hit a meeting, for heaven's sakes. Make sure you've got meetings scheduled into your holiday.
And for those that aren't dealing with addiction and recovery and stuff, and if you still need to get away, I'm pretty sure there's going to be plenty of open AA meetings during the holidays to go and hit one. So, and I'm pretty sure they'd be more than happy to welcome you.
And Narcotics Anonymous and CODA and all of it, food addicts, all of it, sex and love addiction, all of it.
So there's a meeting out there for pretty much anything and everything, and so these holidays, those rooms can be a safe space to go. So that I'm really glad that you brought that up, because a lot of people forget that in the moment they can go to a meeting. Nowadays, people have their phone, and there are 24/7 Zoom meetings for these.
That's right. That's right.
We don't really have an excuse anymore, unfortunately.
Well, that's a blessing. That's a blessing. Yeah, that's a blessing that we have access.
And I know that
my grandfather got sober in the same hospital that in New York, that was it, Bill Wilson. It was the same. It was the same place, and he didn't have the tools that we have. And he suffered, and it was difficult. It was difficult. So we have the tools now. This is amazing. We have just massive blessings.
That is for sure. And recovery nowadays really does focus on the healing aspect as well. It's not just the abstinence. And I know that the original recovery programs do that as well, but I see that in the rooms, people are starting to really build on that aspect of recovery, is that the growth and change and healing. They're not just necessarily looking at old patterns and changing old patterns. They're understanding why they did stuff.
Well, that's also smart recovery is really good at that too. Smart recovery is another space that's you learn that stuff.
And
cool.
So recovery is just getting all over the place, and you don't have to be addicted to anything to benefit from recovery either, if I'm not mistaken.
That's true.
So, I mean, I can't say that for sure because I don't have experience with this stuff without having to deal with addiction. So if you get to experience these tools without having to, that is awesome. I'm glad that we get to share these things with you.
Awesome.
So, are there any other tools that you have? We are nearing the end of the episode. So, anything that you want to talk about, let's talk about. And real quick, I may also say, since this is a special episode, I don't mind going over. And so, anyone that wants to listen to the rest of the episode can go over to retrievingsanity.com, YouTube, and Spotify, and so on and so forth. And you can also find all of Elizabeth Kipp's episodes now and her social links at retrievingsanity.com. So
that's awesome. Thank you. I'd like to add, like we said, we try to avoid high-risk situations.
Mm-hmm.
Communicate your needs.
Okay.
So, one of the things that I had to learn was, and there's lots of reasons why this is a block for us, was to ask for help.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't ask for help because we've just been let down so much in the past. Or maybe when we ask for help, we get in trouble.
Yeah.
Or it just wasn't there for us. For whatever reason, asking for help is like, well, we don't do that. I have to be independent. Those are all, we anyway, learn to ask for help, communicate your needs, learn to enjoy non-alcoholic alternatives. I just, it doesn't have to, don't judge. What are you judging as good? Yeah. So also keep your eye on the prize, which is connection, not consumption.
Ooh, I like that one. Connection, not consumption. Because that is what it is all about. It is about connection.
Yeah. Also keep your expectations in line with reality. And that can be tricky. I had an old timer when I got early in recovery. Really got my attention. He said, "An expectation is a resentment about to happen."
Oh yeah.
And a resentment is a step towards relapse. And that got my attention.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Whoa!" And that was what, 6 words or something. And I was just like, you could have heard a pin drop in that room. And yeah. So, and I remembered, I remember him. I mean, that was years ago. I don't remember that guy. So because I remember what he said, it was so powerful. So keep your expectations real and step into service. Do volunteer work where you can. Get out of your own stuff, and you can help the family, or you can help at a local food kitchen. There's all kinds of ways you can do volunteer work over the holidays.
There's a lot of different resources that I've seen in just the DFW area, which is just great, and I think more people need to definitely have those kind of things out there. Or actually do them. But one of the things that you really touched on was asking for help and communicating your needs. And I think that that's a really good one, because otherwise people are not going to know that it's okay to do that. But they have to feel safe too.
That's right. Oh yeah. The safety, we brought in safety first.
Yeah.
We brought in safety first. Remember, you can't connect if you're not feeling safe. You can't. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can't connect and protect at the same time. Yeah. So safety first, and then also, I like, my last thing would be to embrace gratitude.
Ooh, that's a good one.
So, kind of no matter what's happening, what's the gift in this for you? That's another thing I learned from a gentleman in the rooms, sharing one night early in my recovery. I had a gratitude vibe coming in. I think my ancestors just gifted me with that. Girl, she's going to need this. Give her this. Because I always kind of had that. But I remember this guy saying, somebody was talking about, whatever their difficulty was. And again, it just took a few words, and you could have heard a pin drop in the room. And he said, when stuff like that happens to me, I ask myself, what's the gift in this? Mm-hmm. It's like, that's awesome, you know? So because you're moving in it's kind of like an object in motion stays in motion until acted on by an equal or opposite force. And so if you're like all freaked out and you're in your egoic, oh my God, they're doing it to me and how horrible the world is and all the stuff, right? And that's momentum. That's a behavior that's got some momentum to it, right? That's an object in motion, right? The equal or opposite forces, what's the gift in this?
Yeah.
So
okay.
Yeah.
I like that. And gratitude is one of the things that I've heard is the key or the cure to addiction.
Well, connection, I think, is the key to the cure to addiction. Addiction is a disease of lost self, of isolation, separation. So connection, and then once you get connection, then you can, then you're like,
Yep. And that was just from rehab. I don't remember the exact phrasing. Maybe I should have at this point. Maybe I would have been better off. Who knows?
Oh, we are where we are now. Let's just enjoy it.
Yeah, and man, you just said some really great stuff for the audience, because I know so many people are going to get some good stuff out of this, and probably kind of like what you said earlier, these people are going to need to hear exactly what has been said, so.
Well, hopefully something in here is helpful to somebody. They'll hear what they need to, and they'll be able to stay on their path of recovery during the holidays.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And times of challenge, just generally. Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me on to be your guest again and talking about this beautiful topic. I appreciate it.
I'm extremely grateful and happy that you were able to be on again, because it's just been an absolute pleasure and a blast. So I guess we can definitely probably see you back on in the future, so that we can catch up. We never know what roads life has, and I would like to catch up to, see how the holidays were for you and everything like that. So
awesome.
All right.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. I appreciate it, Keegan. It's great to see you. All the best to you, for you and your family and your loved ones on the holidays. And thank you again.
Of course. And all the best to you, and much love to you as well. So
thank you.
Of course. Until then, until next week, y'all have a good rest of the day, or whenever you're really listening to this. So y'all have a good one. Stan.